this item to even take it up, because it's kind of like a speeding ticket. They jumped ahead here, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. You have two ways of handling that. One is to pay the fine. If you pay the fine, then you can get back, in either case you continue driving. I mean, they don't take your car away if you're just 10 miles over. Here they have paid the fine, and by our ordinance there's really nothing else we do as long as they have paid the fine and billed according to the requirements. I don't see any reason to even take this up, because there's nothing else the board can vote on to penalize or not penalize. Luke's admitted that when he read it over and looked at the dates on the photographs, that there was an issue, so.
Totally agree.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, good enough. Okay, so that was the 3 appeals. Back to my run sheet. At this time, I would invite Luke back. Switch chairs. Thank you. At this time, the meeting will progress to the open. And Amber, you had asked for some time on the open.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Luke, do you have matters for board discussion?
I do. I think this is a time that I may bring up and just kind of check with the board on, okay. Seeing as how we've had a couple of appeals now, I know when the county wrote the bylaws, going on a couple of years ago now, we outlined process on conditional use permit and variances. We have not specifically outlined any process on appeals to the board, and they're just kind of walking the way through. I mean, we talk about what needs to be in an application, and it's not really portions of it are by ordinance, but the actual structure of the application itself is one item I want to talk about, and then the second part is just the process for the meeting. I'm going to work the way backwards. We've had 2 appeals now. One was on an individual item. One had multiple items rolled together, which when items are associated with the same action item, state law says that they need to be bundled together anyway. So the way that it was handled was correct with respect to Ms. Christensen and having those bundled together. So it is possible, as we see things into the future, that we would see similar instances where we have bundled requests like that. And so what we've seen is that in an action that we had an individual request, what the board did is held 20 minutes for the applicant, 20 minutes for the affected party in that case, and then a rebuttal time into there. And then from this one, I've still got up there the rules as far as how we handle that. Do you see a need to change how we just did that, board? And if not, do you want me to write that into bylaws for how to handle appeals? Specifically hearings on those.
So you're asking if it's bundled 20 minutes or split 10 minutes, or you're asking for a timeline?
It was the bundled. I think it's actually
really
terminology. I'd say to flip that was if it's an individual request, if there's only one appeal, that it would be 20 minutes. If it's a case where they have multiple appeals rolled into the same meeting or same request, I don't know if you want to establish a max time and then have the board or the chair decide how long for each individual appeal in an instance like we had today, or if you just flat out want to say we're just going to go 10 minutes, and if you file 7 appeals that are going to be heard at the same meeting, well then you've got 10 minutes on 1, 10 on 2, 10 on 3, 10 on 4, so on down the line. My own feeling is that I think that the applicant should have an idea ahead of time before they come in, because it's difficult.
Absolutely, because this was, I didn't like the 3-in-1 thing, one vote on 3 different items when I heard that's what it was gonna be. And it's like,
I like the concept where if it's one item, you get 20 minutes, or if you have multiple, then you split it up, like we did today.
okay.
And I presume the rebuttal, does that make sense to leave up to the chair for discretion, or do you just want that written into there too, to be 3 minutes in handling it that way? In reality, you still have the ability to ask questions of each entity there as well, if there are things you're unclear with.
Who are debate experts in here that debated through school? What kind of a timeline do they give for rebuttals? Is it 2 minutes, 3 minutes? I know it's limited. I don't know.
3 minutes worked well during the testimony, because some people are comfortable in front of a microphone, others are not. With 3 minutes, as was said, you prepare, get it over. Abraham Lincoln did the Gettysburg Address in under 3. Sometimes people start repeating themselves. We've all been to church, we've all heard that. Sometimes it's a 4-minute sermon that takes 16 minutes. In the situations where we end up with in that kind of testimony, 20 to 40 people, 3 minutes, plus time to sit down, time to get up, it still takes a couple hours. 3 minutes is just an efficient time for a rebuttal, because it's basically repeating stuff probably that we've already heard, just making your points. I'd hate to see that stretched out to 5, 10. Some of these meetings last until 10 o'clock as it is at night. The chairman's been chewed out for meetings that last at 10:30 or 11 o'clock. On the appeal, 20 minutes for one, 10 minutes if you have multiple ones. Is that fair? And if you only come in with one, you get 20, but if you got multiple, you get 10. Speaking time, should it be 15 and everybody get the same, or should we stay with 10? Amber, you stayed under 10 today. I'm going to ask you a question. Did you feel severely pinched on time for 10 minutes? Or? Okay.
That was the problem preparing, is I had no idea what the time constraint was going to be, if it was going to be 20 minutes for 3 appeals, if it was going to be 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, if it was...
That's why we're trying to figure this out.
If it was going to be all in one big thing. So, yeah, it was really difficult to prepare. Did I think 10 minutes was difficult? No, because I had read the complaint to you before. I think 15 minutes per appeal. If it was me, I think 15 minutes per appeal would be fair, because why would I have to shorten all of my statements because I have more grievance?
That's kind of where I'm coming
Yeah.
from. Miles, same question to you. Does 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, where does that fall in your timeline? I know attorneys are paid orators. They go on for hours. That's what.
To me, it varies greatly from issue to issue. The issues here, I did not feel at all constrained with the time thing, but I can conceive of other issues or other topics where it would take more time to lay out an appropriate demonstration of the issues on the matters. So on the matters that we dealt with here, I did not think time was any kind of an issue or concern for me, but I can think of other issues where it might.
Could you see a 15-minute time frame as being a happy medium?
Yes, I can't come up with anything off the top of my head, but I don't think I could cover it in 15 minutes.
So both of you have been to numerous meetings during the whole wind tower writing the ordinance, the 3-minute rebuttal time or 3 minutes speaking time. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think 3 minutes is an appropriate rebuttal time. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Okay, I'll ask Amber the same question.
I think a 3-minute rebuttal was just fine for this type of a setting. But on the public hearings, like for a really big project like what we had, I didn't think 3 minutes was always appropriate. Sometimes 5 minutes could make a big difference. You know, not everybody speaks the full length anyway.
Right, we had some at 1,
Yeah.
and then some at 7.
If I'd make, if you'd allow, I'd get one point. One of the things, and I have my own personal preferences, I sit in the meetings, however, those are different than what I think. I want to knock that thing down quick. The one thing I would say is that the more you shorten it, and all due respect to our orators in the room, the more you shorten it, the more likely it is that that's all we're going to have. Is an appeal discussion will solely be to folks that are attorneys or paid representatives, because they're probably the ones that are going to be able to synthesize their comments to a point to be able to make an appeal like Ms. Christensen had here bundled into 5 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever. The more you decrease it, the more efficient they have to be. They're probably more apt to be professional speakers at that point. And I don't know that that's the only way you want to have appeals filed, or permits for that matter too. So I'm kind of leaning towards what you said here too, 15.
And I mean, we've all been there. I think if you disagree with me, you're probably fudging. You can only hold someone's attention for so long. And at 20 minutes, I'm starting to forget what you said in the first 5, unless I'm taking notes. And I don't see everybody taking notes, either sitting up here or sitting in the audience. Sometimes bullet points, nailed hard, over 5 or 10 minute, presentation will stick in my mind a lot more than a friendly conversation for 20 minutes. So, Myron, what do you think? What's a proper time for the initial appeal presentation?
Well, I think initially I said 10 minutes, but I 15 minutes. Think about sitting in the pew on Sunday morning. Sermons usually run about 20 minutes. And I forgot the first 5 minutes of the sermon, I'll guarantee you that. I'm afraid to admit it, but that's the way it is. 20 minutes is too long. 10 minutes maybe pushing some people, but I can say a lot in 10 minutes if I'm organized.
I can see when they're referencing data.
Right.
That takes a little longer.
Takes a little bit longer, and so that 15 minutes will be all right, but rebuttal 3 minutes, I'd say that's it.
Okay.
That'll make you push. That'll make you push, but that'll be specific then.
Okay. Rob, Felix?
Well, since I'm the world's worst public speaker, I think the 10-minute idea is but 15's okay, but it does go back to what you just said, a church sermon. You got 16 minutes, but it's said 4 times, and I didn't see that happening here.
No, these are.
But I don't think you also used up even your whole 10 minutes in the end, so.
Because I didn't
Yeah,
know if
yeah,
it was going to
right.
have 20 for 3 appeals.
So if I had to say, I'd say 10, but that's just me.
I do not really like that, say 20 minutes, and if you've got 2, 3, then they're only 10. So I could very easily go with a 15 flat. You don't have to use the 15. You get done in 10, you're done. Rebuttal, 3 minutes, I believe is plenty.
Okay.
Well, I spoke earlier, I guess, as a compromise 15 for all, probably makes sense. That way, everyone's gonna know there's not this for this, or,
15's palatable.
Yep, and the 3-minute rebuttal, I would agree.
Okay. All right. Mel.
I'd say 10 on each side and 3.
Mark.
I'm gonna go for the middle, 15 minutes on each side.
Okay.
Even at that, you're looking at 36 minutes to hear the arguments, so.
Well, 20 is out of the question from what I'm hearing. 15 seems to be the average compromise.
Okay. I've got
I'll throw it in the revote.
20 and 10 both crossed out on my list, and 15 is circled, so. That's that part, and then the other thing I wanted to show, and I was thinking I had an actual empty one, but I don't, but I just kind of wanted to, of course, by ordinance, and my job is to create administrative documents such as applications. I just want to, I'm going to show the application that Christensen had filled out, only for the purposes of reading more of what we have into it, and if there's something you think should be different within it, I'd like you to tell me, but I just, as far as it goes, we went with the basic information just to know who to send to, who's filing the appeal. We have legal description in there if there's a specific legal description that is being questioned. And then reference to a decision being appealed. Now, most of the times we are going to have supplemental information like we had here, and that's kind of the intent. Ideally, we have references to page numbers, things like that if we could, but from a standpoint of the decision being appealed, we want to make sure that specifically the question being asked is referenced, and then the applicable section, because again, it's in reference to a decision of the zoning officer, an interpretation which the zoning officer is allowed to have within there, as well as making sure that it's not a ministerial act to bring about the conditions of a permit. So that was all that we had in there, and then as we said, we had a list of exhibits. If you go with see attached, ideally though, we'd have, the hope there was that we'd have maybe an index of some sort, just to know what they were. In this case, I'll tell you, Ms. Christensen had filed all the information, and we were trying to get together a header page. So I mean, there's less information on this one than we'd probably see in other ones, but that was more because of the time constraints. She just wanted to be sure to get everything in so that we have it on file. So that one I'm not worried about what was on it or anything like that. So I just wanted to get it onto there because we didn't have a form. Is there anything you can think of from that standpoint that we should have differently or in supplement to it? Because we really did, we had about 3 drafts of this before we finally did this thing. Anything you can think of, board members?
Is there any need to specify what percent of the vote that you have to have in that process?
In the application, I don't believe so within the application. I mean, I don't do that in the conditional use permit
Yeah.
or the variance. I think it's totally necessary for you to know and the applicant to know. But yeah, during the hearing, but in the application, I mean, it's,
I simply asked that because I wouldn't have known if you hadn't said.
Yeah.
ahead of time.
it's within the 120 pages of zoning ordinance that I'm sure you have memorized.
Yep.
I dropped that down. Was there anything you could think of? The only thing I could think of is possibly where it says a decision being filed, perhaps the date of the decision of the zoning officer, because there could be differences like we ran into in this case where when I did the review, I realized that I'd made a mistake on the initial review that I had. So that we could reference a future letter if we needed to. Do you think we need to have a date in there? Or? It looks like you're leaving that up to me, Luke, figure it
Yeah, I
out.
was gonna say, well,
Sounds good to me.
I still have a question. When they come in and make an application for one, there is a fee.
Yes.
Okay, so if you come in and make an application for 3, it's considered bundled and there's one fee, or are they considered, we're gonna do each one in 15 minutes, is it 3?
I'm doing it, so far I'm doing it as one.
I
And
just
the
want
reason,
it
yeah,
clear, so it's
And
same for each person.
and the reason I'm doing it that way is because we're having one hearing, and because it's, again, by state law, they're supposed to be bundled together anyway. So to me, it seems, it would be different if I was writing individually the questions into there. as far as it is, but as of now, what we're doing is we're putting a notice in there that there's an appeal of a decision of the zoning officer, the hearing on which will be heard on this date, anyone can show up and watch, is basically what it's saying. I think it would be a little bit different if we put each bullet point into there, but at this point, I don't
that's
see
fine.
why we need to do it, why we need to charge someone for each $300 for this case. I think it makes,
I just want consistency all the way through.
yeah,
Because they're a related subject matter.
yes, yes.
What if
Where-
they're not related?
It's interesting.
What if they're not related?
Well, if they're not related, say it is on a permit
What if
for
one was for Crown Ridge and the other one was for a different one?
totally, then at that point, then it would have to be individual. Then it would have to be individual, and the same would go for if it's on this building permit versus this building permit, if there are different questions on different permits, that'd be different. In this case, they're all tied to the same conditional use permit, so we bundled them that way, is how we did it. Yeah, it does leave some room into there as far as how to handle that notice. I do prefer the ability, though, to notice them the way we did and leave it up to you to split them apart, split the question itself, because that's how you would do it in parliamentary procedure anyway, is that you'd have a motion to split it. Chair just told me before the meeting, you might as well put the bullets on there separately, because I'm gonna split them, I'm gonna ask for it to be split anyway. So, that's why we did it that way, and frankly, that's the guide I'm gonna go by, that if they're bundled, we'll notice them that way, but they'll be individually acted upon.
Right, because when you notice it in the paper like this, you can put it all together where it would be different. You'd have to have two different ones, so that'd make a difference on.
Yeah, there are places that'll do them together, and there might be a time where we do some of that stuff together, but right now, it seems to work as far as notice is going and how we're handling that. Yeah, so that's how I see it so far.
Okay. Can I bring up something new? Since we're in the bylaws, or am I out of line?
Well, you do have the ability to go ahead.
Okay. On the open, when we asked that at the beginning of the meeting, 5 minutes to bring something to the board's attention. And then Amber come one of those meetings, she said, well, I got 3 things, or whatever the number was, which was fine. So I chose to give her 5 minutes on each thing. Because that seems fair. I'm always gonna err on the side of trying to be fair. Is it 5 minutes? Because the bylaws don't say.
Bylaws, as I recall, are in reference to each
person.
individual.
Each person.
Yes.
So I violated the bylaws by giving her 5 minutes on each.
Out of
each
fairness,
item.
the chair has the ability to do so, and these guys can tell you you're wrong.
Right. And that's why I want that a little more clear. Maybe it's fine to just leave it to the chair to decide at that. Or do you want to specify 5 minutes per person or 5 minutes per item? Because you may get a person who comes with 7 items. Just try and clog up a few. But it's 5 minutes. And you don't, what I don't like is when you kind of put the onus on the chair to make that decision on the fly. Whatever that may be, is all of a sudden it's like, okay, 5 minutes, but I got 7 items. Okay, well, there just went 35 less minutes, possibly. Most people don't use their full time.
Well, the problem is, what one person thinks is 7 items, and what we might think is 1 or 2. You know, and all of a sudden you give them 35 minutes, basically on the same topic, but he said, oh, this is 7, use 7 for 7 different things. Well, it really wasn't.
So
I don't,
just go
there again, 5 minutes, you can pretty much,
5 minutes, it's only to bring it to our attention.
Yeah,
We can't
we are.
make any decisions
Right.
that are binding or take a vote. So stay with just 5 minutes per person.
I can tell you when the bylaws were written, I want you to remember when the bylaws were written, we ran into a case where we had a former chair and his brother come in to address the board, along with about 5 of their friends that kind of looked like they wanted to talk. And at that time, we didn't have anything specifically within our bylaws, and we established a time period to allow them to come in and speak. Had we allowed each one